Well, we're at the place where we want to talk about money, money, money. And I am so grateful for you joining us. I'm seated here with Mark and Chuck, and I want you to know that they are experts. And they've learned and been tried by the fire. And so we're going to have a candid conversation. We're going to keep it real, and we're going to let you ask questions after we talk. The first thing I want you to do is introduce yourself, Chuck, and tell us a little bit about your business and yourself.
Sure. Name's Chuck Albert. I came over here to the Dayton area in the early 80s with NCR. Spent the first chunk of my career doing the big business thing, NCR for 8 years, LexisNexis for 8 years, Dayton Power and Light through industry deregulation, that kind of stuff. The second half of my career has been in roles more like what you're in, right? Startup work, turnaround work, that kind of stuff. I had I can't even remember, was early 2000s, a business partner of mine. We left kind of the corporate world and did a manufacturing startup in South Georgia. And so I've been right where a lot of you guys probably are, where you've got a business plan, you've got a brilliant idea, you know there's a market, but you've got to find money, and you've got to find structure, and you've got to find stuff, and you've got to get financing, and you've got to get all that stuff. And so I've been there, and so I can probably relate pretty well to where you're at. Following that, I moved into, I was doing some work with kind of corporate restructuring, and got paired up with a gentleman, Dave Muha. And Dave has owned a commercial commercial general contracting business for 30-some years. And Dave was having trouble coming out of a recession, one of the many, and needed help. Had a problem, ironically, he had a problem with his bankers. And that's when I got involved with Dave, and we set about doing some restructuring work with them. And coming out of that, once we had things kind of squared around, Dave and I formed a partnership, and so for the last 12 years now, I've been a part of running a commercial general contracting business here in the Dayton area, including a startup of a commercial painting business. And so that's been my world for the last couple of years, and it's in that world that I came to meet the Fifth Third folks.
Thank you so much, Chuck. That value of business background comes through, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to introduce you to my colleague and one of the, I think, best business bankers in the region. Mark, share with who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thanks. So I've been in banking for now, it's over 20 years. I started back in 95 doing business, or just doing retail banking in the branches, kind of grew up in that world. Started with National City back in the day when I was at Ohio State. Just kind of kept with it. Really enjoyed working with business owners as they came in. So that was kind of the route I wanted to take. About 13 years ago, I got to do that with Fifth Third. And I've been working with clients like Chuck ever since, and really enjoy watching them go down that path and that journey of getting to where they need to be and where they want to be. And watching customers grow from startup businesses like yourselves into mature businesses like Chuck that are getting to the point where they're going to be going to the next part of the succession planning of the business and those phases of stuff. So it's from the startup all the way to the next generation or succession of the business that I like to help with. So
Absolutely. The business cycle, startup to sharing it with your family or even for sale. That is what we're going to talk a little bit more about. We're also you're going to see that not every bank is the same. Bankers get a stigma. We're stuffy and we say no a lot. At the end of the day, building a relationship with your banker will lead you to the yes, and we can help coach you along the way. The first question I want to ask you all is, how did you meet Mark? How did you meet your banker?
I'm not going to use bank names because I don't like doing that, so I'll just put numbers on them. So when I met Dave Muhall. The very first time he and I met, it was actually at Tie 9, and I knew his wife from kind of a prior life, and so she asked if I could come meet her husband, that he owned a construction company and was having trouble. And so we're sitting over there at Tie 9, and he gives me a letter that he had just gotten from, I'll call him bank number 2. He had been banking with a bank number 1 for a long time and had a great relationship with them. But he had just gotten this letter that said that bank number 1 had been bought by bank number 2, and bank number 2 was going to call the lines of credit of every small business client that they had that didn't fit a particular profile. If you were in the construction trade, if you were below a certain threshold, if your line of credit was above a certain threshold, then they were, right, because a line of credit's a demand note, and so they were calling those loans. And so that's the letter. So it was like, hi, Dave, I'm Chuck, nice to meet you. What's this letter mean? And it was, well, unless you've got $1 million sitting around, I think it means you're out of business and that I'm probably picking up the tab for lunch. And so his face goes white, and then we worked through it, right? We engaged bank number 2 in dialogue, set about trying to figure out how to settle with them, how to shift that debt, how to settle it and shift that debt. We found a way of doing that, and so we got ourselves through that crisis. But bank number 2, where they didn't want the line of credit, they wanted to keep our mortgage, and so we said, well, you're not going to get one without the other. And so we started reaching out to banks to see who we could partner with, and so we found bank number 3. And we started to form a relationship with bank number 3, but the problem was literally every time I would connect with them, it would start with, yeah, you have a new bank representative. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. And that person would then say, gee, can you tell me something about your business? And so by the time I'd had probably 4 or 5 of those kind of conversations with bank number 3, I told him, I said, if we have another one of these conversations, then I'm going to be talking to somebody else. And lo and behold, a few weeks go by, and here comes somebody else that I don't know that's asking me to tell them the story. And so in that void, right, and so bank number 1 now is out of business. Bank number 2 is not very friendly. And bank number 3 is changing their rep all the time. In walks a Fifth Third rep on a cold call. And I tell them the story. They immediately set about dealing with the mortgage and kind of how they could handle that. And that became the basis for our relationship with Fifth Third. Mark moved into that role not long after that moment, and he has been Fifth Third to us for 10 years.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in all that time, I've dealt with just dozens and dozens and dozens of other Fifth Third people, but all of them are as coordinated by Mark. And so the face of my banking relationship hasn't changed since I got to Fifth Third, and that has made them different than anybody else we dealt with. So simple question, long answer. That's how we met.
That's what this is all about.
Good.
The folks here want to hear the story.
Well, if long answers is what you're looking for, then I'm your guy.
I think I got the right guy.
Got it.
Mark, tell us about what it was like when you first met Chuck and the business.
It was, Chuck told the story when I came in, because obviously they had started with somebody different with Fifth Third, and he wanted to make sure that kind of was going to stop with me. And as we all know, in banking, people move around, people get promoted, those type of things. So you always can't guarantee that banker is going to be there, but to make sure that there's some type of continuity there, that we don't lose the customer because of changes and things like that. I tried to assure them that we're going to make sure that we've got a team of people that are going to work with them and that type of stuff. And I think we've held true to that, of having that team work with him and make sure that they feel like they know who their bank is and the bank knows who they are, more importantly. So, and knowing that the story that he had told at the time of where they were coming, where they were struggling, what they were trying to accomplish, it was just, I saw a lot of opportunity there to help them and see what we can do to get them to where they wanted to be and be that true partner with them.
And I love it that you said team.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't come to the table empty-handed. You had other folks, other experts
Yep.
on our team to join in to be his banking partner.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, and today, sorry not to
That's
interrupt you,
okay.
but today I actually had to tell him that his one of his key partners of mine is moving on to another position inside the bank. So,
Really bad timing, Mark, really horrible.
so basically the person that assists me the most and gives me the most support got a new position, but we'll be filling it with somebody else. And I was letting Chuck know that, and he's gone through this a couple times with me already, so he knows that we'll be in a good spot going forward.
So keeping the customer informed
Mhm.
and still being the quarterback.
Yes.
Wonderful. Chuck, how was Mark and Fifth Third Bank able to help you grow your business?
Mark is I don't know if it's true for everybody at Fifth Third, but Mark is a very active listener, right? And so, and we developed a relationship over the years where nothing is off limits, right? I view Mark as a part of our team, just like anybody else that works for me or with me in the business. And so I don't feel like there's anything I can't tell him, whether it's good or bad. And so when Mark and I talk, and he's asking how the business is, and I'm very honest with him, and he'll listen for like trigger words, right? And try to find ways he can help. A good example, I don't know if everybody's plugged into it, but the amount of fraud that's out there in the commercial world is just incredible. And so we were getting hit with counterfeit checks hitting our account, and it was crazy. And so I'm talking to Mark about that one day, and he said, "Have I ever talked to you about Positive Pay?" And I said, "No, I have no idea what that is." And it's a way to be proactive about the checks that are coming against your account. You can preview those every day, right? You can do it a couple of different ways. You can preview them every day so that before they hit your account, and then you've got to figure out how to get the money back, before they hit your account, you can look at them and you can validate them. And most of these counterfeit checks are so easy to identify, it's just crazy. They'll be to somebody's name that you've never heard of before, and they'll be on checks that don't look anything like yours. But Mark introduced me to that, and so that has saved us just tens of thousands of dollars and hours and hours and hours of headache, where I wouldn't have known about Positive Pay, because like a lot of you, I don't read all the email that comes to me from my bank or from a supplier or any of that. I don't read all of that stuff. So I'm not one who's inclined to read marketing materials that hit my inbox. Like a lot of you, I'm getting hundreds of emails a day, and sorting through that stuff is hard. And so what Mark is able to do is listen to what's going on in our world and then figure out ways for Fifth Third to help. Another example, we just had it at just 15, 20 minutes ago. We're working on kind of the future of the company, and I'm not getting any older, any younger. Well, I am getting older. I'm not getting any younger, and my business partner, Dave, we're all, 60 plus, and trying to figure out, what's next for us, or when we're going to move to a retirement or another stage. And so working on that transition stuff. And Mark heard that, and he said, "We can help with that," right? And he told me this a few days ago, and I kind of questioned how. And he said, "No, we can bring a team of people to the table to help either side of what ultimately may be kind of a transition of the business, who's transitioning from and who is transitioning to." And so he introduced me just up at the top of the steps, right? He introduced me to a resource at Fifth Third. And that gentleman said, "I'm going to call you tomorrow, and we'll set up a meeting." I had no idea Fifth Third had that kind of resource, but because my banker listened to what's going on with our business, and he knows Fifth Third and what Fifth Third can and can't do, he was able to connect the dots. And connecting the dots means everything to me and my business, as it probably will be to you and yours.
That's wonderful, and an active listener you are.
As I'm sitting here.
Don't say huh. Don't say huh. What?
Well, I know for sure that you're well informed, and I love that about you. You know our product, you know the connections. So what would be your top service or products that you have shared with our businesses in this community? And before you answer that, I would just want to say that where Chuck is, he's near the transition of the end of the business cycle for them, but we can meet you wherever you are.
Yeah, so when you talk about products and services, I mean, pretty much, I get this question a lot when I meet with new clients or prospects, and they're like, what can you bring to the table is different than, like Chuck was saying, bank number two? There really is no difference per bank of what products and services we offer. The majority of the banks offer the same products, same services. The difference comes down to the person you're dealing with. Are they going to listen to the things, the concerns that you have? Are they going to offer solutions? Are they going to make those connections? That's kind of really the biggest thing that we can offer clients, whether they're in the startup phase or they're in the later stages of the business. So we all have those products that can start businesses up, can get them through the growing pains, those type of things, their day-to-day activities, things like Positive Pay, as Chuck had described. We all offer those things. It just depends on how we listen to the customer and we fit those needs with the solutions we have that they have.
And so let it be known that I guess the question you must ask yourself right now is, what is your relationship with your banker like? Are they actively listening to where you are in the business cycle? As we stated, the products are pretty much the same. The services are the same. SBA is SBA. But at the end of the day, it's about building that relationship with your banker so that they can be responsive to your needs. Let's see, next question. Chuck, how does it feel knowing that you have a banker who knows you and that you can call anytime for help?
Yeah, you can say the same thing about your bankers you could your whoever's running sales for you or manufacturing for you, right? It's another key role in your company. And so just like I need somebody who's doing commercial painting sales for me, I need to know that he is on the job, that he's sweating the details, that he's looking for that next job. He's kind of filling that role, right? In the same way, I need to be able to look to my banker, right? I need to be able to trust that he's going to be there when I need him, because I can't, if you're out in the market and you're looking for opportunities for your business, or more realistically, opportunities are looking for you, right? And when they hit you, you don't have time to say, time out, let me go talk to somebody and I'll get back to you. You may not have all the answers, but you need to know whether somebody's got your back or not, right? That's the only way you can operate aggressively in the marketplace and act on those opportunities as you see them. And so with Mark, I know that Fifth Third is going to be there for me, right? It may be difficult, it may be awkward, it may be painful, but I know that they'll figure something out for me. And so when I'm talking to a customer and all right, I'm talking to an opportunity, right? And it's creating kind of an odd situation. Maybe it's a business combination you want to look at, or it's a new customer that you want to take on, or it's that big piece of business that's bigger than anything you've ever had that's going to really blow up your payroll and blow up your line of credit. I know, and Mark, I'm probably setting you up for this, right? So, because I'm going to come along here in a minute, I'm going to say, hey, Mark, can we get a big increase to our line of credit? And they're all going to expect you to say absolutely. But knowing that your banker's got your back like that and you can trust them just like anybody else on your team is critical, right? You can't go, if you own your business and you've got somebody else that's doing sales for you or operations, say manufacturing for you, you want to be able to aggressively deal with that opportunity and know that your manufacturing person is going to figure it out, or your distribution person is going to figure it out. And in the same way, I trust that Mark and his team at Fifth Third is going to figure it out when I need it. So, yeah, so it's as important. That role is as important as any other key role in our company.
And what I hear you saying is that gives you the confidence in the market, and it gives you freedom to even think about expanding or trying something new because you have confidence in the bank, and that even if it's painful and sometimes difficult, that we will work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, opportunities won't wait for you to be tentative, right? You've got to be aggressive, and a lot of times the only competitive advantage you've got in the marketplace is that you see opportunities before somebody else. And if you're not prepared to act on them, then they're going to be gone. And having that trust in your whole team, which includes your banker, gives you the confidence to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I want to mention that team would include a banker, a lawyer, an accountant, and an insurance person. That is your dream team at wherever you are in your business cycle. Mark, tell me, what do you look for in a business owner when they come to the bank? What do you want to see?
I think Chuck's kind of touched on it. Just being open with us. The more honest, open, upfront you are about stuff instead of us finding things out later on in the process is key. Because if we know things, we know what struggles are coming up, what you're seeing in the future maybe, those things help us guide you in the right direction. So I think those are the things that we need out of a business owner is be honest with us, don't hide things from us, and we can help you in those things. And on the same note, it doesn't have to be just about banking. It can be about anything that you do. I want to say maybe I've referred maybe 4 customers to you guys for building.
At least, yeah.
So I have customers that come to me and ask questions about things that don't have anything to do about business, and I can get Chuck involved, or I can get my other business owners that I work with involved. So I've got like 80 or 90 clients in my book in all different industries. So there's never I want to say a dumb question to ask. If you run into a roadblock and you go, Mark may know somebody that can help me. Those are the kind of things that we can make those connections to. And your CPAs can do the same things, your attorneys. So be open and honest. I think that's the biggest thing that we look for.
And that builds the trust, and then you become a trusted advisor.
Yes.
See, we go with you through thick and thin. Life has ups and downs, but that doesn't mean if you're in a down place that your banker should leave you. And so what you want to do is make sure that you develop that relationship so you do feel comfortable making sure that they know where you really are. Let's see, I have another question for Chuck. How did having this relationship during COVID help you?
Yeah, I don't know that we would be sitting here talking. Well, you wouldn't have any interest in talking to me if we didn't have a good relationship with Fifth Third when we went into COVID. Like everybody else, right? Everything changed overnight, and we wanted to figure out a way to stay open and find a reason to not stay open, right? And so I said that backwards. Anyway, we stayed open throughout COVID. We were construction was defined as an essential business, so we wanted to stay open, but we knew that we were going to have a problem with people, right? And in our business, people are that's it. We don't have a lot of assets. You know, we don't have an online software that people buy. It's a people business. We have people running jobs and quoting jobs and designing jobs and all that kind of stuff. And so we needed to be able to keep our people. And how are you going to do that in the middle of a pandemic if you don't have money coming in? And so the PPP program came out. And I don't know if I was the first person that Mark called, but I was definitely in his first 5 people that he called. And between our CPA and Mark, they got us connected to really even kind of early iterations of the application that you needed to fill out. And so right at the very beginning of all of that, we were able to get our application into PPP. I'm on the phone with Mark at midnight on a Friday night, and he's manually keying in our application because he knows we need to be able to get the money quickly because we didn't want to lose a step. We had a lot of projects that were in midstream, and we needed to keep our people. And so Mark's talking to me at midnight on a Friday. He's entering our our PPP application, the system's crashing and burning. He's having to do it again. So we're talking kind of through the night about this. He was able to get it in, and we were able to get our money quickly and put it directly into payroll and calm our people down, right? Everybody, if you all remember where you were kind of when all that started, and nobody knew where it was going to end. Nobody knew if they were going to have a job, how they were going to get paid, how they're going to be able to make money and pay their bills and that kind of stuff. And we were able to go to our people with the early access to the PPP money. We were able to go to our people right up front and said, don't sweat it. You know, if you're sick, stay home. That's fine. Your job's going to be here when you come back. We were able to stay open. A lot of people were more comfortable coming into work, right, than they were staying at home. And so that allowed us to give confidence to our people. And so coming out of COVID, we weren't just survivors. We were kind of thrivers, right? Our business accelerated coming out of COVID because we had zero turnover during it. And we were able to pick up people coming out as we started to grow. We were able to find people that had experience in the marketplace but were with companies that didn't do so well or hadn't planned well or hadn't used their PPP money. And then on the backside of that, with the whole forgiveness thing, Mark was all over that with us. From almost the moment we were doing the application process, he's talking to me about the forgiveness process so that we could get all of our paperwork in order, knowing that kind of your application on this end has to become kind of the flip side of your request for forgiveness on the other end. And so even though all of that stuff was poorly defined when it first came out, Mark made that simple for us, and it was allowed us to get into it and get out of it and get all the debt forgiven and get access to the funds and keep our people and yada, yada, yada. But coming out of it, our business has been on an acceleration path.
So you would say that we stuck with you through thick and thin?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just like any other, there's like, we use the word partner a lot, but there's what a real partner is. And a real partner is there for you regardless of what's going on. And that's what Fifth Third, as evidenced to us by Mark, right? That's what Mark has been to our business. He's been a true partner. He could have said at midnight on a Friday night, look, call me at 9 o'clock on Monday, and we'll see what we can do. But he didn't. He knew it was important to us, and so he did what he needed to do to help us out. And that's what a partner looks like. So.
Mark, how commendable, outstanding commitment. What was this time like for you during COVID and how you dealt with your customers?
As everybody knows, I mean, it was an extremely difficult time for businesses, for individuals, and for us as the bank, because we had no clue what was going on. I mean, we were learning stuff as everybody else was on the news. We weren't getting a lot of information. We were trying to figure out how processes were going to work. Government came out and said, hey, this money is going to be available. Applications start on this date. We had no clue how to process applications, no clue how to do stuff. So I was being as open as I could with my clients, just like Chuck was saying, letting him know kind of where we're at when we think we're going to be able to start taking applications. And he was one of my very first clients that actually the entire bank took, because I was part of the pilot program to start it out. So there was a learning curve, and he was part of that learning curve. I say it all the time, it was one of the most rewarding parts of my career that I never want to ever live again. It was a hectic, almost 2 months of working 7 days a week, 12, 13-hour days. And like Chuck said, I mean, there were many nights I was working until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, calling customers, emailing them, doing stuff. But when you sit down and you looked at the numbers and the amount of individual lives that you impacted, that was the rewarding part of it, making sure that those people were able to put food on their tables. It wasn't about just keeping Chuck's business open and those type of things. It was about the individuals that work for him. I mean, you guys have, 50 plus employees?
Right.
Maybe at the time. So those were 50 people that we touched without even an introduction or them knowing who I am or anything like that. But knowing that we were able to help all those people, that was the rewarding part of it.
And it's extraordinary that you were able to pivot and pivot and pivot. one of the things we learned is that just because those government dollars were there did not mean that the process was there. And so there were daily adjustments. And
Yeah, and I would say the biggest part of the program that a lot of people didn't understand, because they kept on saying, why can't you give us the money? The government gave it to you. That wasn't the government's money. The government's money didn't kick in until Chuck got forgiven. So the bank was putting all that money out there, so we're trying to figure out how to protect ourselves at the same time of helping our clients. So that was the biggest hurdle the banks had to come over, is how do we get this money out there and make sure that those loans do get forgiven, because if not, then we're going to have a bunch of loans that default. And that's not what we want to do, because then the bank's going to hurt from it.
And not only are we regulated, and so we have to do our due diligence. There are things that we have to do when we get money out to the community. And so that pivot was extraordinary that you were doing that for our customers. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I got another, I think it's the final question, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. If you were out in the audience, Chuck, what would you want to know? What would you ask you?
You know, when you're looking for a banking relationship, don't get sucked into the marketing material or the hype or the commercials or any of that kind of stuff. You know, your banking relationship, my advice, right, is to view your banking relationship just like you do any other key role on your team, you know. And so do the interviews, you know, meet the people just like you would. You wouldn't just respond to an ad in the paper or some online posting that somebody says, hey, I want to be your salesperson. Oh, great, I'll hire you. You wouldn't do that. You might go through 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 different people trying to find the right person, just the right person for your business. Do the same thing with your banker, right? I mean, it might be, Fifth Third might be great, but you know, if the banker that's sitting in front of you that you're talking to isn't the right person for you, then move on. And maybe even be honest with them and say, you know, I'm just not feeling it with you, and give the bank an opportunity to send you somebody else, right? But you've got to be able to trust that person just like you do any other role on your team. And so I would tell you to view a banking relationship just like you do any of those key roles, and interview the person. Mark said it earlier, right, that most of the banks have the same or very similar products, and the difference is the people. And so act on that and leverage that and use your skill to sort through the people and find the right one for you and where you happen to be with your business. A lot of that's going to require honesty on your part. Say, here are the things I'm worried about. You know, I'm trying to acquire a manufacturing facility, but I don't have any money. You know, how do I go about that? And well, you've got to have somebody on your team that knows something about that. That can be him, or it could be somebody else. But if I'm you guys, that's one of the things I'm thinking about in this presentation, is how do I know? You know, Mark said he's got a book of however many clients. If you're interested in Fifth Third, who's the person that's going to be your Mark? Maybe it is Mark. Maybe it's somebody else, but who's that person going to be?
Well, what do you think you want people to know if you're on the other side of that desk?
Yeah. So first I want to kind of add on a little bit to what Chuck had said. At times I think about, if I move on to a new position, if I get promoted, those type of things, who would I have my clients go to? We've got very capable people at Fifth Third that are on our team, but personalities matter. So matching your personality with your banker is key as well. So those are the type of things that you want to look at on that front. The question that I would ask is, how do I find my banker? Besides just interviewing, those type of things. Use your centers of influence. Use your attorneys, your CPAs, your insurance people, your friends, other business owners you know, and ask them. Ask them who they use. They're going to give you the best resources and the best referrals. I would think if Chuck had somebody come up to him and ask him who to bank with, he would refer me to them. Those are the best ways to find people that are going to match your your needs and your wants and those type of things. Because it does come down to that relationship and knowing the individuals. So the biggest thing I would say is find a referral source to get you in front of the right person.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Can I tell a story on this one?
Absolutely,
All right,
please
so, when I was doing this manufacturing startup, so a buddy of mine and I, we left DP&L, and we went off and did a turnaround at this online company down in Cincinnati. And so then we got into consulting and trying to help entrepreneurs get their businesses up and running, and we bumped into some intellectual property that we wanted to go with. And so we decided we're going to try to fund a manufacturing startup in South Georgia. And Neil and I both regard ourselves very highly, and so we think we're smart. You know, God, we know everything, right? What don't we know? And so we put together our own private placement memorandum and went out and started meeting people and talking to people and raising money. And we raised, I don't know, $500,000-$600,000 or so in like 30 days to fund this thing. And so we got up and running, and we're starting to use that money to do what we needed to do. And so he and I were having breakfast with a local attorney. I won't give you her name. Y'all would probably know her though. And we're having breakfast at the Golden Nugget actually, and she's asking how this thing is going, and she's expressing an interest in getting involved. And she said, "Who did your legal work?" And we said, "Well, what legal work?" And she said, "On your private placement memorandum." Well, we didn't have any legal work on that. We found a copy of one that somebody else had done, and we just kind of followed that and did that. She's like, you can't do that. You can't raise that kind of money and do it that way. She said, "Let me have one of my corporate lawyers look at it." And so they did, and what they found is like the whole thing was just, it violated like every rule or law or whatever there was out there. And so we had to take a big chunk of that money and pay a lawyer to redo a private placement memorandum, and that included a rescission thing. We had to give people the right to get their money back, even though we had already spent all that money. It was horrible. And so what I would tell you up front is know your limitations. Know what you know what you don't know. There are plenty of people that are out there that are willing to help if you ask them, and a lot of it is free. You know, in our case, we could have gotten free advice from this same person if we had just acknowledged what we don't know and asked her up front. Instead, we did it, we created a problem, and then we had to pay a bunch of money and put a lot of egg on our face to kind of backtrack and reset all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, at the beginning of your journey, right, it's you're going to be on some kind of trajectory, and it doesn't take a very significant thing to change the trajectory, just a couple of degrees, but the outcome, right, is huge, right? I mean, for us, you know, at the time it was in the market, if we had done it right the first time, we wouldn't have gotten a 6 to 8 month delay in our process and our trajectory, and that allowed for some things to catch up with us, and ultimately the result was a good one, but it wasn't as good as it could have been, and you can trace a lot of it back to us thinking we were smarter than what we really were. So don't be afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of it around, and like I said, a lot of it is help you don't necessarily even have to pay for, but you do have to ask for it.
That's amazing, and thank you for that candor. I'm always a firm believer that transparency brings deliverance. It gets you to the right information, gets you to the right source, and that integrity that you have to have when you're being transparent, it really transfers as well. So I just want to thank you both. Let's give them a hand. And I want to open the floor for questions.
I got two. We got a small one from Mark. These are both you. Tell me about Fifth Third, your sweet spot. The size of business that you guys target. And second, talk to me about your management. You come in with ideas. Who needs to approve it? And where they're located? As he said, speed. We got some of these jobs and things happen. It's got to be hours. It's not weeks. So tell me a little bit about Fifth Third.
Yeah, so with Fifth Third, we have a sweet spot for kind of everything in a way. We have different levels that deal with different size clients. The clients that I deal with are usually between 2 million in sales on upwards of, we'll say 30 million in sales. But we have a channel above and below that that help our clients. So it's just getting in front of that right person in the right channel to help you with what your need is. Now we do like certain industries like manufacturing, and different things like that, and there's some stuff that we don't like, and that we can kind of get into that conversation with each individual person. But when you talk about dollar size or loans, really it just depends on getting in front of the right channel. When you talk about our management and underwriting and those type of things, we are a big bank, so we do have a very detailed structure of how we input loans, how we get decisions. All of those decisions are made out of Cincinnati, so we're relatively close. We have an underwriting supervisor in our group that's willing to come into market and meet with our clients. So if we've got a difficult deal, something that has a lot of hair on it, we can get them in front of our clients and talk about that, and it's not just a black and white transaction. So we do have that unique ability in the Dayton market.
Do you champion the client? Well, are you with them when they meet with them?
Yes. No problem.
I have a question up here. When you meet with a new business, who on the team do you like to meet with, and who do you feel like you should bring to the table? Like, it's obviously different if it's a one-person startup or small business, but say they have a few employees, like, who do you like to see showing up to those meetings, and who would you wish you could bring with you?
I want to talk to the decision makers. I want to talk to the people that have the ability to make a decision and answer questions and know the business inside and out. People like Chuck that is the CFO of the company that knows the financials, knows everything about it. Sometimes the business owner doesn't know all those details. And it's because they're good at what they do as being an owner. They hire people like Chuck to really do that type of stuff. So having the business owner there to know the story, the background, those type of things, but also having that key financial person in the room as well.
And then from my side, I like to try to control the conversation, and so I don't want a bunch of other people in the room. In fact, the deal I've always had with the owner of our business, with Dave, right, is you do what you do and I'll do what I do, right? It's just like coaching a team of, I've coached kids sports for a long, long time. It's the same thing. You want to take kids that do certain things, that have certain abilities, and put them in position to be successful. Same in a business. And so with Dave is the builder, right? He's the guy that knows all that stuff. But all the banking stuff, that's all foreign. And so he's not going to bring anything to the table. And so I want to try to control the relationship, control the flow of information. And so if I don't know it, then I'll go out and get it. But on my side or on your side, when you meet with the banker, I would start with it being just you.
Yeah, I would say about 90% of my conversations with their company is with Chuck. I know Dave. I see him out in the community personally, and I see him all the time. But the majority of our really meaty conversations are with Chuck, and then we kind of bring Dave in at the end to kind of talk about what our plan is to move forward.
When it's time for the personal guarantee, then I go get Dave so that he can sign.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So in Fifth Third, so we're on our third business,
Okay.
and the second of those two is also still in business. So we have two businesses. We've had number one banks and number two banks and number three banks all along, probably 20 years' time. And I never feel like we've ever gotten to know our banker or had really a relationship with the banker. And in COVID, it hurt us because we missed out on PPP. We're much smaller. But I'm trying to figure out, so we just actually opened a new business account for our new business at Fifth Third last week.
Okay, thank you.
So, and we just picked, because we've been with a lot of credit unions and smaller banks, thinking smaller local banks would be more helpful we're not at the level that you would service.
Mhm.
So how do we find, like, I don't know how to find within Fifth Third the people that we might gel with.
Yeah, so,
The person that actually opened the account, I don't think would be that person.
yeah, so in that under 2 million range, we still kind of help support the financial centers and answer their questions. They're kind of that key driver of the smaller businesses right now. That's the channel that we've got working on that. Getting in with I would say the financial center manager is the key person to talk to. So maybe wherever you opened up your account. Yes. So the branch manager is going to kind of be that key person for you to have that contact with. Because we do have the personal bankers in there, we have the preferred bankers. They're more on the personal side, but that financial center manager is the one that's really going to drive that business conversation a little bit more. So getting to know that financial center manager would probably be a key thing for you guys at this point, yes.
If I'm you, I would refer, if you get that meeting with the business center manager, I would refer to this conversation that we're just having and describe the role that Mark is playing to us, to her, right? And kind of challenge her. Can you be that person to us, right? Because your business, whatever size it is, it's as important to you as my business is to me. It's just a different size. And so I would describe a lot of the things that you've heard today, describe them to her and say, and challenge her. Are you the person that can be that to us? And if not, who can, right? And see what she says, right? And maybe you got to find another branch or another branch manager, or maybe she can make a referral, or Mark can make a referral, right? You're not stuck with the branch that you just happened to walk into that day.
Yep.
But I think you've got every right to be a demanding partner on that. It's a critical role.
And so, but then what's the transition to a point where you do enter
Into my world. So that's where myself and my colleagues, we have conversations with the financial center managers all the time. We look at their book of business. It's a team. It's a team concept. We work together to make sure that the customers are being serviced the right way. Do we get it all the time 100% right? No, I don't think anybody does. But trying to make sure that we're taking care of our customers in the best way we can, and making those referrals, and we call it One Bank. So at Fifth Third, we have a term, it's called One Bank. We don't care what channel you're in, where you're at, we're gonna make sure that everybody is taking care of you and moving you into the right bucket that you need to be into. And it's not, this is my customer, I'm gonna hold them and I'm not gonna let you have them. We do have that philosophy of One Bank and making sure that we're helping you out as you grow your business, because you do start out as a smaller business, maybe $500,000 in sales the first year. Well, maybe in 5 years you're at $5 million in sales. Well, there's more that comes with that. There's more services, more attention that you need. And that's why as you kind of keep moving up the chain, in our world, you go from myself to middle market. The middle market officers only have maybe 30 or 40 clients, but because there's more demand, there's more time that they spend with each client. That's why it keeps getting smaller as the businesses get larger, because there's more activity and more time in the day that we spend with one individual customer as compared to myself having 80 or 90 that I can deal with on a regular basis.
So where are you located, may I ask? What city? There are wonderful financial center managers there, and I want you to
Yes.
come over to our table, and we'll talk to you about it further.
Yeah, and I actually live in Centerville myself, and I will say the two, I don't know which branch you went to, if you went to Whip Road or if you went to South Centerville, but both financial centers have fantastic managers there that can help you out.
So we are at the end of our time together. Please be sure to stop by our booth here outside of the tank, and we'll be upstairs in the rotunda. We hope that we've been helpful to you and your business. We'll be available for the next 3 days to talk with you about some of your banking needs, and just to stop by and start a conversation. Carrie is up there. Wave your hand, Carrie. She's another one of our business bankers and works with Mark. So we'd be happy to help you build that relationship with your banker and that needs to be on your team. Thanks for everything, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you.